You never really think about it. The grocery store, those bright fluorescent lights, the neatly stacked cereal boxes, the soft hum of refrigerated aisles. It all feels safe, familiar, mundane. But what if I told you that some stores hide more than just expired milk and forgotten shopping lists? What if behind that frozen food section, there's something else watching, waiting, lurking? Tonight, we begin a journey into true grocery store horror stories. Real accounts that have sent employees quitting without explanation, and customers swearing never to return. This first story, it comes from a small-town chain grocery store in Illinois, and it begins, like most stories do, on an ordinary night. It was a Thursday evening in mid-October, the kind of cold where your breath fogs up the minute you step outside, and the sky turns dark before dinner. Maya, a 26-year-old overnight stalker, had just clocked in at Halton Foods, a local 24-hour grocery store tucked between a defunct Radio Shack and an abandoned bowling alley. Maya liked the night shifts. No customers, no screaming kids, just her headphones, and rows of untouched shelves. That night felt normal at first. Her manager, Dave, grunted a hello and handed her the manifest for the dairy aisle. The lights above aisle 6 were flickering, but that wasn't unusual. Dave always joked they were haunted. By 2 a.m., the store was dead silent. Maya was in aisle 6, carefully aligning tubs of yogurt by flavor and expiry. That's when she heard it. A giggle. Soft, high-pitched, childlike. She pulled out her left earbud, frowning. There was no one else scheduled for stocking that night. No customers either. It was midweek and business always died after midnight. The giggle came again, this time followed by the unmistakable sound of a shopping cart while squeaking down the aisle behind her. Maya turned. Nothing. The aisle was empty, except for the puddle of dull, flickering light and the cold breath misting out of her mouth. She stood still, listening. Then, behind her, a small voice whispered, "Play with me." She spun around. Still nothing. Her heart thudded in her ears. Her first thought was that maybe Dave was playing a prank. He'd done that before, hiding in the bread aisle with a walkie-talkie. But something about the voice was off. It was too close, as if it had been right by her ear. Maya shook it off. Probably just her mind playing tricks. She slipped her earbud back in and kept working. But the strange noises didn't stop. Over the next hour, she heard more giggles. Something falling to the ground in the cereal aisle. An automatic door whooshing open even though no one was near the entrance. The entire store had this weight, like the air had thickened with something unseen. Every shadow looked darker. Every flicker felt intentional. At 3:23 a.m., she decided to check the security monitors in the office. Maybe there was a kid who snuck in somehow. Maybe it was a prank from the high school down the street. Dave wasn't in the office. His half-drunk coffee sat on the desk, steam long gone. The monitors buzzed quietly, showing each aisle in grainy black and white footage. Maya scanned each screen, eyes flicking back and forth. Produce, meat, pharmacy. And then she saw it. Aisle 6. There, standing still between the rows of yogurt and juice, was a small boy, pale, unmoving, maybe 5 or 6 years old, dressed in striped pajamas, staring directly at the camera. His mouth slowly stretched into a grin. And then the feed cut out. Just static. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. She rushed out of the office, heart pounding like a drumbeat. The air outside the room felt colder, sharper. The hum of the refrigerators had stopped entirely, replaced with a deep, unnatural silence. The moment she stepped into aisle 6, she knew something was wrong. The entire row of yogurt containers had been rearranged, now all stacked in a pyramid on the floor, perfectly centered. Maya hadn't done that. No one else could have. But there they were, as if placed with great care. And written in the condensation on the cooler door behind them, smeared by a childlike hand, were 3 words. "You found me." She turned and ran. She didn't look back. Not when the overhead lights buzzed and shorted out. Not when she heard the patter of bare feet behind her. Not even when she thought she felt tiny fingers graze her wrist. She didn't stop until she reached the front entrance and saw Dave standing outside, his face pale, hands trembling as he fumbled with his phone. He hadn't left the building to prank her. He had gone out back for a smoke and got locked out. Claimed his phone was dead, but it started working again the moment she opened the door. Maya didn't finish her shift. She never went back. Later, she found out something chilling. Back in 1989, the land where Halton Foods stood had been home to a small house. A house that burned to the ground in an unexplained fire. A young boy had died in the blaze, trapped in his bedroom, unable to escape. The only thing they found in the wreckage was a melted plastic toy shopping cart. Locals swore the spot was cursed, that the child never left. Halton Foods shut down permanently 2 years later. They said it was due to low customer flow. But Maya, and a few others who worked those night shifts, they knew better. The grocery store might seem like the last place you'd expect to encounter something unnatural. But sometimes, it's the most ordinary places that hide the darkest secrets. Aisle may 6th be gone now, but the boy, he's probably just waiting for someone else to play with. There's something unnerving about the walk-in freezer. It's the cold, sure, but more than that, it's the isolation. The door shuts behind you, thick and heavy, muffling every sound from the outside world. You're alone in there, surrounded by frost-covered boxes and breathing clouds into the air. But what if you weren't alone? This second tale in our series of true grocery store horror stories comes from northern Michigan. It was submitted anonymously by a former assistant manager of a family-run grocery chain. And it begins with a simple, unexplained disappearance. The store was called Wilcox Market, a locally beloved place just off Highway 77. A quiet store, small enough that regulars were greeted by name and the employees often knew your entire grocery list before you walked in. Sarah, the assistant manager, had been there almost 6 years. She knew the ins and outs of that store better than her own apartment. But even she admits, she never really liked the freezer. It wasn't just the cold. It was the sound it made, this low, constant hum that seemed to vibrate through the walls, like something was breathing behind them. In December of 2016, they hired a new night stalker. His name was Julian, just 19, fresh out of high school, quiet but polite. It was his first real job, and Sarah remembered how eager he was to prove himself. Julian took his duties seriously, and within his first week, he was working solo in the evenings. His shift from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. mostly involved unloading shipments, restocking frozen goods, and reorganizing storage in the walk-in freezer. On the night in question, Sarah stayed late to help with inventory. Around 11:45 p.m., she noticed Julian hadn't come out of the back for over half an hour, which was strange. He usually passed by the front register every 15 minutes or so to update her. She walked to the back, calling his name. No response. The delivery area was quiet. The back door was locked, the loading dock empty. She noticed the freezer door slightly ajar, a wedge of frosted air drifting out into the hallway. She stepped inside. The first thing she noticed was how quiet it was. The usual hum of the freezer fans had stopped. The silence was complete, unnatural. The frost-covered walls were glistening under a dim, flickering bulb. The boxes were all stacked neatly, but there were small patches of frost on the floor that looked smeared, as if someone had slipped or dragged something across the ice. "Sarah?" The voice was faint, muffled. She turned. It had come from the far back corner, near the meat racks. But there was no one there. "Julian?" she called. Silence again. Then suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. She ran back, but the latch wouldn't budge. Her keycard wouldn't work either. Panic crept in as the cold wrapped itself tighter around her lungs. Her breath came in fast bursts, and her fingers numbed almost instantly. She banged on the door. Nothing. That's when she heard it. A knocking. But not from her side of the door. From the inside. From the other side of the freezer wall. Knock. 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 Slow. Deliberate. It echoed through the frozen air like a heartbeat. Sarah backed away, instinct screaming that something was wrong. Then she saw it. In the frost on the metal wall, words, scratched by a finger, just barely legible. "I'm still here." And beneath it, a name. Julian. Her heart stopped. She spun, searching the room again. She yelled his name, but no answer came. Moments later, the lights cut out, and the freezer, silent until now, let out a deep, grinding groan, like something waking up. She swore she saw movement, a shadow against the far wall, sliding along the frost. It looked like someone crouching, no, crawling, along the ceiling. Sarah screamed, and then, just like that, the lights came back on. The door popped open. She fell out into the hallway, gasping for air, eyes wide. 2 employees found her minutes later, shivering and pale. They rushed her out of the building. An ambulance was called. Her body temperature was dangerously low. She spent 3 days in the hospital. When they searched the freezer later that night, Julian was gone. His name tag was found frozen to the floor in the back corner. Nothing else. Security footage from that night showed him entering the freezer at 11:17 p.m. But the footage glitched the moment he stepped inside. The screen turned black for 13 full minutes. When it resumed, the freezer door was swinging shut on its own. Julian was never seen again. The police investigated, but with no signs of foul play and no body, they ruled it a missing persons case. His family never got closure. Just a folded-up work apron and a grocery store that refused to talk about what really happened. But it didn't end there. Over the next few months, every employee who worked the night shift reported hearing knocking sounds from the back of the freezer. A few even claimed they saw footprints in the frost, barefoot, child-sized, leading into the freezer, but never out. The store shut down that spring for renovations. It never reopened. Some say that freezer is still there, behind boarded-up doors and dusty shelves. Still humming, still cold. And if you ever find yourself standing in front of it, late at night, in a quiet grocery store, listen closely. You just might hear someone knocking from the other side. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. And some freezers don't just preserve food, they preserve something else. Security cameras are supposed to make us feel safe. They watch from above, silently capturing the truth, recording everything in sight. But what if one day the cameras showed you something that shouldn't be there? This third story was sent to us by a former night manager at a large grocery chain in Oregon. What started as a routine review of store footage turned into a descent into paranoia, hallucinations, and something far more sinister. Marcus had worked at Evergreen Market for almost a decade. The kind of steady, reliable worker every store manager dreams of. Responsible, calm under pressure, and willing to take the shifts no one else wanted, including the graveyard shift. The store was massive, wide aisles, 2 entrances, and over 40 security cameras monitored from a small control room tucked near the loading dock. Marcus liked the solitude, at least until the night the cameras started acting strange. It began innocently enough. A subtle flicker on camera 12, the one overlooking the pet food aisle. A glitch, he figured. It was an old unit, due for replacement. But as he rewound the footage, something caught his attention. At exactly 3:16 a.m., a tall figure stepped into frame, thin, wearing a long coat. His face was blurred, not due to pixelation, but in a way that looked unnatural, like someone had smeared his face with static. Marcus paused the footage, leaned in. The figure stood still, unmoving, facing directly toward the camera. And then, in a single frame, his head tilted sharply to the side, almost a full 90 degrees. The screen glitched again. When it cleared, the aisle was empty. Marcus played it back 3 more times. Same exact sequence. No footsteps, no movement, just the man, the tilt, then gone. He reported the footage to the regional manager the next day. They laughed it off as a corrupted file. But the next night it got worse. Around 2:40 a.m., Marcus was patrolling the back aisles when he felt a cold rush of air. Strange, because the AC had been turned off hours ago. He passed by the pet aisle, the same one from camera 12, and saw that the motion-activated lights had turned on, even though the aisle was completely empty. Curious, he walked down it. Nothing seemed out of place, until he heard the sound. Whispers. Low, indistinct voices, overlapping like a distorted recording. They were coming from the wall-mounted speaker just above the camera. He looked up. The lens was cracked. The whispers stopped the moment he noticed. That night, Marcus didn't finish his shift. He went home early, told his boss he wasn't feeling well. But he couldn't sleep. The image of that faceless figure haunted him. He began obsessively reviewing past footage, digging back through the archives. And to his horror, he discovered that the figure had appeared before, dozens of times. Always between 3 o'clock and 3:30 a.m., always in the same aisle. Sometimes just a glimpse, a coat brushing the corner of a frame. Sometimes a full shot standing motionless. In one video, the man turned toward a female employee and raised a hand, pointing directly at her. She quit 2 days later. Marcus grew paranoid. He began sleeping at the store, convinced something was wrong. He covered camera 12 with tape. He unplugged it, but somehow it always turned back on. One night, while doing a final walkthrough, Marcus passed by the front end and saw something that made his blood run cold. The man from the footage was standing inside the store, just behind the bakery counter. No motion, no sound, just standing there staring. Marcus froze. He stepped back slowly, never breaking eye contact. But when he turned the corner and looked back, the man was gone. No footsteps, no doors opened, gone. The footage from that moment, completely missing. The next morning, Marcus tried to hand in his resignation. But the store owner wouldn't hear it. "You're probably just tired," they told him. "Take a few days off." So he did. He went to stay with his brother 2 towns over. Cleared his head. Took walks. Didn't check his phone for days. Until one evening, while scrolling through old texts, he got a notification from the store security app. Live feed triggered. Movement detected in aisle 12. Against his better judgment, Marcus opened the feed. There, in crisp high resolution, stood the man in the long coat, right in front of the camera. And on the screen, written in red letters, were the words, "You can't delete me." Marcus dropped the phone. He went to the store the next morning with a printed resignation letter in hand. But when he arrived, the building was surrounded by police tape. An employee had gone missing overnight. Her name was Claire, a college student working part-time. Last seen in aisle 12. The security system had wiped itself clean. No trace of the footage. All backups gone. Cameras disabled. The store closed for an undisclosed renovation and reopened months later with a new name, new layout, and a completely replaced staff. Marcus never went back. In fact, he moved 2 states away, changed his number, never told his new employer about his past job. But sometimes, when he walks into a store, he can still hear the faint hum of a camera turning toward him, still feel a static charge crawl up his neck. Because once you see the man in the monitor, he never really stops watching. We trust cameras to protect us, to show us the truth. But sometimes, they see too much. And sometimes, what's on the screen isn't just a recording. Coming up in part 4, don't go into the bathroom after midnight. A janitor learns why one restroom stall is always mysteriously locked, and what comes out if you try to open it. If you're enjoying this series, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with your creepiest workplace story. Who knows, yours might be next. Bathrooms in public places are already unsettling. The flickering lights, the distant echoes, the stillness behind each closed stall. But what if one of those stalls wasn't just closed? What if it was hiding something? This next true story comes from a part-time janitor in Georgia, and it begins with a simple warning passed down from every employee to the next. Never go into the last stall after midnight. Dante was 34 and recently divorced when he took the job at Morning Mart, a 24-hour grocery store nestled between an old laundromat and a pawn shop in rural Georgia. He wasn't looking for excitement, just quiet, steady pay, and a place to disappear for a while. He got hired on as the overnight cleaner 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. The store was mostly empty during those hours, which suited Dante fine. His job was simple. Mop the floors, clean the break room, restock the bathrooms, and empty the trash bins. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. The only thing that bothered him was the employee bathroom in the back hall behind the produce section. It had 3 stalls, a sink, and a mirror that never stopped fogging up, even when it wasn't humid. From the day he started, Dante noticed the third stall door was always closed, locked from the inside. No matter the time of night, no matter how many times he checked, that stall never budged. At first, he assumed it was broken, or maybe management was storing something back there. But when he asked the shift manager, she got quiet. "Oh, that one," she said, almost under her breath. "Just leave it alone, especially after midnight." She didn't elaborate, just walked off. Dante laughed it off at first, thought maybe it was just some superstition passed around to scare the newbies. Until the first week he stayed late to do a deep clean. It was a Thursday, 12:14 a.m. The store was empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Dante wheeled his cleaning cart into the bathroom and started on the mirror, humming to himself. As he sprayed the glass, he heard a noise. Click. He turned. The stall door, the third one, had unlatched. But not fully. Just enough to creak open, maybe an inch. "Hello?" he called. No answer. He walked to the stall and gently pushed the door. It slammed shut, violently, the impact shaking the floor. Startled, Dante stumbled back. "Hey!" he shouted, trying to steady his voice. "This isn't funny." Then he noticed something strange on the floor. Wet footprints, bare, trailing from the stall to where he stood. They hadn't been there a second ago. He backed out of the bathroom and closed the door behind him. Waited a minute, two. When he returned, the footprints were gone. He didn't clean that bathroom for the rest of the shift. The next night, he brought it up to another overnight worker, an older stock guy named Pete who had been with the store for years. Pete sighed. "You're not the first, man. That stall's been like that since the store opened." "Why don't they fix it?" Dante asked. "They've tried. Every time someone goes in to repair it, something weird happens. Lights go out. Tools go missing. One guy quit on the spot. Wouldn't even talk about what he saw. Last person who forced that stall open transferred to another location a week later. Said the place gave him nightmares." Pete leaned in, voice low. "They say a girl died in there before the store was built. This land used to be a daycare back in the 70s. Burned down. A few kids never made it out. And the worst part? One of them was found in the bathroom stall, locked from the inside." Dante didn't sleep that day, and for weeks after, he avoided the stall entirely. But curiosity, as it always does, eventually won. It was just past midnight. Quiet. Nothing but the low hum of the soda cooler in the hallway. Dante stood in front of the third stall again, rubber gloves on, a pry tool in hand. "Just want to know," he muttered to himself. "That's all." He wedged the tool into the gap and pushed. The lock clicked open. The door creaked slowly, resisting him like it didn't want to move. What he saw inside stopped him cold. The stall was pristine, clean, untouched, except for the mirror bolted to the back wall, something none of the other stalls had. It was small, round, and coated in frost, even though the air was warm. And in the reflection he saw her. A girl, 8, maybe 9 years old, soaking wet, pale. Her mouth hung open, but no sound came out. Her eyes were dark, completely black. Dante turned around, heart racing. No one was there. He looked back at the mirror. This time her head was tilted, and she was smiling. The door behind him slammed shut. The lights flickered, then died completely. He couldn't move, couldn't scream. The air was thick, heavy, like being underwater. Then whispers, dozens of voices overlapping, chattering in his ear, inside his skull. He reached for the door, yanking it open, stumbling out into the hall, gasping. The bathroom lights clicked on behind him, casting long shadows. When he finally looked back, the third stall was closed, locked, just like it always had been. He never went near it again. Weeks later, he handed in his notice, and when asked why, he simply said, "The stall opened." Conclusion of Part 4. Some doors are locked for a reason, and some mirrors don't just show reflections. They show what's waiting behind them. There are places where silence feels safe. But what happens when the silence is broken? By something you can't see. In the final story of this chilling series, we explore the mystery of Aisle 9, where voices whisper without warning, items fall without cause, and one man discovers a truth buried beneath the floorboards. Elijah was a former sound engineer who had fallen on hard times. A car accident left him with mounting medical bills and persistent hearing issues, ringing in the ears that never quite stopped. Desperate for work, he accepted a night stalker position at Hollow Pines Market, a quiet, independently owned grocery store in northern Maine. The manager, a friendly middle-aged woman named Delilah, gave him a warm welcome and just one piece of advice. If you hear anything in aisle 9, keep walking. At first, he assumed it was a joke. The store had its quirks, temperamental freezers, flickering lights, but nothing that couldn't be chalked up to poor maintenance. Then came the voices. The first time he heard them, he was restocking cans of corn around 2 a.m. The store was dead quiet, no customers, no co-workers. As he knelt to open a box, a voice whispered, "Help me." Elijah turned sharply. No one behind him. He glanced down the aisle. Empty. He paused, trying to steady his breath. Maybe the tinnitus was getting worse, he told himself. Maybe it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But then he heard it again. Clearer this time. A woman's voice. Gentle. Urgent. "We're still here." He dropped the can and backed away. The sound didn't come from the ceiling speakers, nor from outside the building. It felt like it was coming from within the shelves themselves. The next night, he brought a portable recorder to work. He'd used it during his studio days and hoped to catch some audio evidence. Around 2:15 a.m., he hit record and placed it near the pasta section in aisle 9. When he played it back, he heard more than just whispers. There were multiple voices, layered over one another. Some crying, some screaming, others just humming, and then static, followed by a phrase repeated 3 times. "It's buried below. It's buried below. It's buried below." Elijah showed the recording to Delilah the next morning. Her face went pale. She didn't deny it, didn't say it was a prank. Instead, she brought him into the office and quietly closed the door. She explained that the store was built in the early 90s, but the land beneath had a dark history. Before the market, before the parking lot, there had been a makeshift hospital on that ground. An old tuberculosis ward from the early 1900s. When the ward was demolished, it was supposed to be cleared and leveled. But the city cut corners. Some structures were left underground, and some patients never properly relocated. Delilah had tried to leave once, but the store wouldn't let her. She said that every manager since its opening had heard the voices. Some quit, others disappeared. "I've seen people break down in that aisle," she whispered, crying, screaming. One woman ran into the wall trying to get out. She said the shelves were closing in. Elijah didn't sleep that day. He didn't eat. All he could think about were the voices, the way they didn't sound angry but rather trapped. So that night, he brought something new with him. A small handheld frequency analyzer. He figured if the voices were real, he'd catch something measurable. At exactly 2:09 a.m., he entered aisle 9. The device began to spike wildly. Unstable frequencies, fluctuating in rapid pulses. He knelt and placed the device on the floor. That's when he noticed something odd. A square section of tile near the shelf was slightly misaligned. Barely noticeable but different. He pried at the edge with a box cutter. The tile lifted with a groan. Beneath it, he found a wooden hatch. Old, rotted, but intact. The voices grew louder. A low chorus, whispering not in fear, but in anticipation. Elijah, shaking, opened the hatch. The smell hit him instantly. Earth, mildew, and something long decayed. A wooden staircase led into darkness. Cracked, ancient steps swallowed by shadow. He clicked on his flashlight. Below him stretched a corridor lined with rusted hospital beds. Wheelchairs, cabinets with broken glass. And then movement, shapes in the dark. Pale, thin, human-like but slower, as if time dragged on them differently. They didn't approach. They simply watched and whispered, "Help me. Still here. It's buried." And then, louder than ever, one final word. Listen. In a rush, the flashlight flickered, the stairway behind him groaned, and the air grew cold. Elijah ran. He scrambled up the stairs, slammed the hatch and replaced the tile. But the voices didn't stop. They followed him home, played through his speakers, whispered through his phone, bled into his dreams. Desperate, Elijah sent the audio files to paranormal researchers, but the recordings never transferred. Always corrupted, always unreadable. Eventually, he vanished. Delilah found his ID badge in aisle 9, lying exactly where the tile had been disturbed. The hatch? Still sealed. But every now and then, around 2 a.m., a customer complains of hearing someone calling for help, or items falling with no one around. And when they turn to leave aisle 9, they swear someone's watching them from the end of it. Some places carry echoes of the past, but some echoes are alive. Thank you for sticking with us through all 5 horrifying tales. If you made it to the end, drop a comment below with the word "Watcher" to let us know you survived the entire series. And remember, next time you're shopping after dark, don't linger too long